Hello, everyone. It's Eric Quick. Welcome back to Bath Time to Boardroom, where we bring you stories of working parents or parents-to-be and how they blend work life and the challenges that come with it. We're on this journey of our fifth season, almost to episode 50. We're looking forward to that. And this season is all about dads. Colleen is having a wonderful weekend with all of our moms in Tahoe this week, and she'll be back for season 6, hopefully well rested. But today we're talking with Scotty Burkhardt, a teacher in the Folsom Cordova Unified School District just outside Sacramento. He's originally from the Bay Area. He graduated from Chico State. Yep, absolutely. And has lived in downtown Sac for about 20 years. He's dad to Madison, 25, Jack, 13, and Ethan, age 10. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. It's good to see you again after all those wonderful sober years in Chico.
Yeah, so, that's right. That's right. We're alive.
Can't say that we don't have some goodies in our cups today, but love to jump into bath time first. Love to hear more about growing up in the Bay Area and what was it like, and what were your parents like as parents, and kind of how did they parent you?
Sure. So I grew up. It's kind of interesting with people in the Bay Area. Now I grew up in a city called Newark, and a lot of newbies, I think, from the Bay Area. I've met some that don't even know where they live, and they actually live in Newark. And for them, it was an affordable house, and it was close to work, and which is crazy to me because Newark was this tiny little town. Sure, it was kind of part of Silicon Valley, but it was kind of far away, and now it is in the thick of it all. So I grew up in Newark, which is surrounded by Fremont. A lot of people, when I talk to people, I say, do you know where Fremont is? And if they say yes, then I go to Newark. But if I say Newark, a lot of people say Newark, New Jersey. So that's where I start. Yeah. And so grew up there. We moved there when I was 1. So I mean, I spent my whole life, I lived in one house, the whole time. So really got connected with my community and my court and all my friends and just everything. As far as my parents, raising us, my parents were fantastic. They definitely embraced my mom. Just kind of side note, kindergarten teacher, 28 years. I am now a kindergarten teacher. That's not a coincidence. But I think that nurturing, aspect, they were definitely like, if you've got something going on, you might as well do it here. And so they were that kind of family, you know what I mean? That endless times the kids were at our house, the kids were picking us up, we all met here. The junior proms, the senior balls, everyone met, all the parents came, we all did the pictures. My after football practice, guys would just be hanging out. My dad would recognize that. He'd run out to Little Caesars Pizza, bring back a few pizzas, you know what I mean? So they were definitely that family that everyone knew. Having my mom, live or work in Newark Unified School District, she knew all the families. They knew all of us. It was a great time to be that. And the Burkhardt name was kind of everywhere. Now on the bad side of that, I mean, if I misbehaved in school, I didn't have to wonder if my parents were going to find out. I knew that because these teachers knew my mom. So that kept me in check.
Was your mom at the same school that you were at for a period of time, or no?
So my mom worked at one of the elementary sites. She was a kindergarten teacher, and at one point, this was her second career. So once my brother and I got to, I was probably in about 5th, 6th grade. That's when she decided to go back full time, when we were being a little bit more independent. But there was a time, I will say this, that I was in 5th grade, and my mom was subbing at that school. She was doing a long-term sub, and I think she was in 3rd grade, and I was popping off, being a goofball. And my 5th grade teacher kicked me out of my room and said, go to your mother's. And so I had to go hang out with my mom. So, but I do remember my mom subbing for me, and that was kind of funny. And I, of course, would throw the whole, raise my hand, Mom, I need some help. And she'd give me those eyes. And I'm like, I mean, Miss Burkhardt, I need some help, and so, but it was a lot of fun. But,
and you said you had a brother, any other siblings, or just you?
Yeah. So just me and my brother. My brother, his name is Glenn, 3 years older than me, and he still lives in the Bay. So he also is a Chico Wildcat. So that maybe led me there. And right out of Chico, he moved to Silicon Valley to run amok and run with the big dogs, and he's been there ever since. So
nice.
Yeah.
And what kind of influence did your parents' style have on the way you parent today?
Well, I was speaking about that whole idea of like community, right? You know,
Mhm.
if you've got something going on, you might as well do it here. And I definitely, you know, it's funny, you look back and you think like, why do I do these things, good and bad? And a lot of times you can say, well, that's what I was taught, or that's what I was shown, or that's kind of, you know, how I was parented.
I learned by watching you. Remember the
Right,
old
right,
commercials?
exactly, right. I did it watching you, Dad. Right, exactly. And I definitely have done that. You know what I mean? As you were saying, my daughter being 25, you know, I when I got married, I always tell people, you know, I got the burger and the fries. I got a combo deal when Madison came. She was in kindergarten when we met.
Mhm.
Her dad lives down the street. We're all good. We're one modern family. We all get along, which is great. But she definitely was always like, you know, because I was stepdad, I was always Scotty. And it was like,
Mhm.
Scotty, can I have some friends over? We had a swimming pool, not a lot of kids that swim. Sure, come on over, come on over.
Yeah.
And so our house became that hub. And
Nice.
and once again, it was like being a middle school kid, being a high school kid, being a college kid, you just want to hang out, you know? And
Mhm.
if you don't have a safe place to hang out, then you're going to find an unsafe place to hang out. And I feel like you're going to get into more risque things because you
So
just
true.
don't have
Yeah.
a place. And so if you give them that spot, they just want to hang. And there were endless nights of just these kids at our house. And I had so many parents that I would see, you know, passing through in the stores, and they would just thank us. They would say, thank you for letting these kids. I can't believe you let 20, 30 kids
Mm.
just hang out. And I said, they swim, they
Yeah.
hang out at the fire pit. You know, I run and get pizza for these guys, and they're having a blast. And what's great is these kids were smart. They knew if they cleaned up, especially the boys, they knew if they cleaned up, they would get invited back. And they literally would say that to me. They'd say, can I come back? And I go, yeah, can you clean that up for me real quick? And I go, no problem. And I'd walk out there, place would be
Nice.
spotless. And I thought, you know what? That's what it's all about, giving these guys a place. And so now that
Mhm.
my son Jack is 13, he's now in that groove, right? You know, his buddies are over. I mean, now they just text away and people just converge. And it's like, hey, give them the space. You know what I mean? So I've definitely
Yeah.
learned that from my parents, and I definitely don't regret that, you know.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting around creating that space for community, right? For the kids, especially now with electronics. It's so easy. And I know with
Oh,
our kids where
sorry.
we you know, it's so easy for them to just be on their gaming devices and everything else.
Yes.
But especially through COVID, it's been really challenging. You start to see
Right.
some of the social challenges, emotional challenges and social challenges with them communicating with each other in person, you know?
100%.
And so having
100%.
that ground zero that the kids can come into and safe place so that they're not getting in trouble somewhere else. I mean, I can tell you from my childhood, you know, yeah, if you don't have that place to go where it's good, you're going to find somewhere else to go. So tell us a little bit more about you know, your three B's here, Madison, Jack,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ethan, and kind
So
of their differences or similarities.
yeah. So like I said, Madison is my oldest. She's 25 now. So that was kind of fun, you know, going through the childhood neighborhood school that we're down the street, going through that, going through middle school, going through high school,
Mhm.
getting her into college, doing that, you know, transition, which a lot of us are going to be heading there pretty soon. We
Mhm.
already did it. Man, that's a journey itself, you know, being on the other end of that.
Yeah.
She, you know, she went abroad, she went to Ireland, she wanted to stay there. She ran around. She had a blast. And then I think the universe kind of told her, maybe you got to come home. And she really missed home, which maybe says a lot to maybe the environment that we created of that safe
Maybe.
space. And you
Maybe
never know, right? And she
that
came
nucleus
back.
drew her back.
Right. And she came back and she's got a great job. She actually this I don't know if this is a plug. She works for Visit California, which right now you
Oh,
might be
awesome.
seeing on TV, you might be hearing it on the radio. So she got a
Mm.
job there. Headquarters for Visit California is in downtown Sac, the capital, of course.
Mhm.
And so she just landed that job about a month ago. She was working for an environmental company before that, and she's enjoying it. I mean, it's funny, she's now an adult. You know, we would go to these restaurants. We live downtown,
Mhm.
so all, you know, you've got the
Awesome.
restaurants, you've got the nightclubs, you got the bar scene, you got all that. And her seeing that, and now she's an adult, she gets to live that. So she lives, you know, downtown. She's, you know, probably 5-minute drive. She loves coming over for a hot meal every once in a while, which we're glad to
Mhm.
see her. And we're just excited that she's definitely launched into a professional career and she's doing great. So
Yeah, that's
that's
cool.
Madison in a nutshell. Jack, my son, he's 13, so he unfortunately, you know, stepped into the arena of middle school, which we were so excited for him to broaden that horizon. And he
Mhm.
stepped into that sitting at home on a computer like we are right
Yeah.
now. And so that was difficult for that environment. But
Mhm.
we consciously decided, Madison went to the neighborhood middle school.
Mhm.
There's another school kind of across town that's application, not for academics, just application of
Mhm.
motivation, which I, as an educator, I firmly encourage that. The academics, yeah, that plays a part, but motivation, I think, is a big
Mhm.
one. And so he decided to go there. We had visited that when he was a fifth grader, and he loved it as a fifth grader. So he wanted to
Mhm.
go there, and he made tons of connections over Zoom in these groups. I can't thank those teachers enough for building the best culture and climate they could
Mhm.
over screens. So he actually had a really successful middle school year, and he's very excited to get back in person and see all these kids. He swims with a lot of these kids in
Mhm.
that neighborhood. So I'm bummed that he didn't get the full middle school experience, but I'm
Yeah.
hoping this year, fingers crossed, that we could stay open and he can go in and really experience that middle school, because I think that's really when you broaden your horizons.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because, I've got 11 to 13-year-old, and just the adversity that they faced through COVID on the
Yes.
social component, I think has done a lot for us as parents related to showing what happens under severe adversity for the kids
Yes.
mentally,
Yes.
and where they may need help, and also kind of building that resilience in them as well, as they get into, get through high school and then
Big
into
time.
college. I mean, we all know that you're faced with a variety of adversity, whether it's, academic challenges or just social challenges, and God knows with social media and everything else today that there's a lot that they're faced with that we didn't have to deal with as kids.
100%. 100%. I mean that, and we live in in our community is definitely that kind of old fashioned. Kids are still running amok in the front, of the lawns, and still knocking on doors. Can such and such play? And that was very intentional for us. I wanted to
Mhm.
try and mimic as much as I could of our childhood. You see, comments all over the place of us old guys talking about, we knew when we had to get home when the street lights came on. And
Yeah.
and especially with COVID right now, these kids were just locked up, and man,
Mhm.
I saw the struggle of so many different groups, so many different age groups, ethnicities, whatever. And I mean, it was heartbreaking. So
Yeah.
yeah, the social aspect is huge. And I think everyone learned, not the side note, but everyone learned how important school is. I think a lot of people just valued school as like, my kid learns some history and
Mhm.
learns how to add. And it's like, that's kind of the cherry on top. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like they learn community, they learn how to build, they learn how to make decisions, they learn how to problem solve, they learn how to deal with adversity. Like you said, I mean, there's
How to
so
how to
much
interact
more
with each other, right? Like
fully.
social norms,
Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe they might learn something about the Civil War. You know what I mean? That they may or may not remember. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it really put a spotlight, I think, on the importance. I think a lot of parents didn't, I don't know, maybe didn't know, or maybe didn't value going to school. And there were definitely kids that flourished in distance learning. I don't want to take that
Mhm.
away from anyone, but I think for a lot of kids, they really missed that connectivity that school
Yeah.
provided. You know what I mean? So
Definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
How about Ethan? How's
Yeah.
he?
So Ethan, so here's, if I were to kind of rate them all, Ethan was the one. He was in fifth grade, and being that we live downtown, we live in an area called Land Park, and it's a pretty affluent area. So I mean, those teachers didn't want to miss a note on this, and so that poor guy was on at Zoom 8 in the morning, and that guy was cranking until like 3 o'clock sometimes. And it just,
Mhm.
for me personally as a parent, for me personally as an educator, it was just simply too much, but I know you had those working parents that were like, I can't teach these kids. I'm working all day. They need to be working all day. So he fared well, but man, that was a transition. And that guy was
Mhm.
just exhausted. I mean, his mental capacity, sitting still, just not having
Yeah.
that interaction. He's totally a social kid, and he struggled. I the,
Mhm.
the the good news about that was, Madison, my daughter's good friend, who also moved back home due to the pandemic, was unemployed like many people were.
Mhm.
And so the win-win there is we hired her, on our own dime, of course, to basically come and sit with Ethan and be with him. And she got a paycheck, and my son flourished. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
without, Lily is her name, without Lily, it would have been a nightmare. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I know. I think you and
Yeah.
I've talked about this previously, but our son has special needs, 13.
Yeah.
There was a lot of positives for him because every
Yeah.
day was the same. I get
Right.
up, I get on
Right.
my
Right.
computer,
Yeah.
I game. Oh,
Routine.
I'm late for class because I got distracted. I got to get on my Zoom,
Right.
whatever. But just sitting still and the focus and like so difficult for him through this whole process. And now,
Yes.
we're 3 weeks away or 2 weeks away from them going back in person.
Right.
It's going to be a bit of a challenge, the acclimation. And our daughter, she did better, she fared better, but socially definitely challenged, given that she didn't have people to play with,
Right.
outside of class and that kind of thing. So
Right, right. I mean, it was crazy to see that. Fortunately for us, like I said, we had Lily, and
mhm,
fortunate for us that we've got a family about 5 doors down that we get together. Their son and Jack are the same age, their daughter and Ethan are the same age.
mhm,
We kind of made that pact early on, like, hey, we all got to be safe. This COVID stuff is serious stuff. If we create our little social
mhm,
pod, you know, you need to be safe. We need to be safe. We need to like know what we're doing and what's going on. We made that agreement. And so, I mean, Ethan at lunchtime would have a 20-minute lunch. He would scarf his food down
wow,
and just run down the street just to, for 15 minutes of playtime, right after school. The daughter would be at our house playing around, staying outside, washing their hands, trying to be as safe as they can. That was a
mhm,
lifesaver too, is that they had, once again, they needed that connectivity. And it was just, it was tough. It was tough. I mean,
mhm,
it took him a few months, and once he got into it, he did his thing. But boy,
mhm,
it was rough to see that
yeah,
it was too much, I feel like. But I don't fault the parents. I know they
mhm,
had, you've got one side, right? Yeah, as a teacher, you've got one side that tells you you're doing too much, and then you have the other side telling you you're doing too little. So it's like,
yeah. I
what do you
mean,
do?
yeah, my whole thing, and we'll get to it more in boardroom, but I felt for teachers over the last, 18 months because of, our daughter her teacher had kids in class and online. And then at
Yeah.
the end, it was, first it was all online, then it was,
Yep.
some and some. And like, how do you remain present for
Right.
all of them? You just can't, right? And you're
Exactly. It
in the
was
situational sides of it. Tell me a little
100%.
bit more about, you know, your kids, chores, accountability. How does that look? What's your approach with that?
That's a tough one, and that's something that I need to work on. I definitely will be. I'm kind of a busybody, and I'm out there running around, and I'll kind of real quick go, "Hey bud, you want to help me out?" And they're just like, "Yeah," and then I just want to keep going, and I need to remember, I got to stop, and maybe I need to, like, encourage. I need to model. I need to mentor. I need to teach. I need
Mhm,
to, washing this car is going to take me 20 minutes. I think I need to take 45 and go slow and bring this guy in, kind of
mhm,
thing. And, we do have some chores here and there. It's, my kids are at that age where they need a little spending money, and we're not going to give them any spending money. So they know
mhm,
they need to earn a little bit. So, we my wife and I being teachers, it's like, do you make the chore chart and all that stuff? I
mhm,
didn't grow up that way. I grew up that it was very fluid. It was like, hey Scott, I need you before you go out. I need you to take out the garbage. I need you to clean your room.
mhm,
I need you. And then it was like, and a lot of times you dangle something. We're going to go out in an hour. Let's get that done. And I definitely work that way, where if I
mhm.
know I've got something in front of me, I'll get it done. If I don't have anything in front of me, I'm just going to lay around and hardly get it done. So we kind of do it that way,
Yeah.
feeding the animals, taking out garbage, uh, you know, emptying the dishwasher, loading that up,
Mhm.
vacuuming every once in a while, stuff like that, but
Definitely.
it's not this set routine.
Yeah.
I am not a
Just more
set
fluid
guy.
and flexible, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just kind of, there's positives and negatives of both. And I just feel like sometimes what I like is that we're like, guys, look at this place. This is a mess. And I love it when they can look around and go, yeah, and they could just get up. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, that's leadership, when I don't have to tell you what to do, because once you get a job, your manager is not there to tell you what to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're there.
Yeah.
You got to tell yourself what to do. Your manager's, if your manager's telling you what to do, you're not a good employee. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
you're an order taker, you're not a
Yeah,
self-starter.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Let's
so
talk.
I'm hoping that they're, able to just look up, observe, and see. And it's like, what do you see that needs to be done? So
Yeah.
hopefully this flexible method is working, but
Yeah.
they're doing pretty
The
good,
perceptivity piece. Tell us a little bit more, what do you guys like to do as a family? Obviously you're both teachers, you and your wife. Assume summers are open. What do you guys like to do as a family?
A little bit. So kind of interesting about that. So in my household, we have 3 school districts. So
Mm.
I work for Folsom Cordova Unified. My wife works for Elk Grove Unified, and she's year round. And then my
Okay.
sons work for Sac City. So all 3 of those schedules are completely different. So when the summertime comes, and I know some people are going to slap me when I say this because teachers get a lot of time, but we get 3.5 weeks. That's our window, and it's right around 4th of July, which could be a little
Okay.
dicey. Um, and so that's when we try and plan like a summertime, our get-togethers and all that, because my wife is year round. So my wife
Hmm.
has already been in school for over a month in this school
Wow.
year. So, um, that is a challenge, but I mean, I know parents have way bigger challenges that aren't educators.
Hmm.
So we like to travel. We love just doing day trips. We love getting up. I mean, being in Sac, I mean, you've got Tahoe an hour and a half away.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? We love to go to Carmel. We love if it's water. My kids are on swim team. We're in it, kind of
Nice.
thing. And Sac's got so much great stuff around
Hmm.
there with the hiking and the swimming and the river and all that. So we like to be out and about. You know what I mean? We are not a family
Cool.
that sits around. So yeah, that is
Well, yeah, knowing you, I know you don't sit around. You're
yeah,
you're like the Energizer Bunny.
right.
So,
Right.
and you've also been known to be very quick-witted. Tell me a little bit about how that's translated to your kids. Anything funny that they've said to you where you're just like, "What? Did
Yeah.
that really
Well,
just come out of their mouth?"
100%, so I think, Eric, you might see this too. When you look at your daughter and you look at your son, you could definitely see like, wow, my son is a lot like my wife, or my daughter's a lot like me, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Madison, she's my stepdaughter, but she's a good mix of everything. She's the potpourri kind of thing. But my oldest Jack is definitely my wife. I mean, my wife is quieter. She's reserved. She definitely, when she walks into something, she pauses, she looks around. My son Ethan is my twin, which is hilarious at times, and it is World War III at times with the 2 of us, because you've got 2 guys, just 2 rams going at it, and
Mhm.
he jumps in there and he's swinging and dancing, and right, he's just shooting off the hip like me. So he's a goofball big time. And I look
Mhm.
at that and I think, I mean, when it's funny, it's like, oh, that's me. And when he's going off the rails, it's like, oh, that's me. You know what I mean? So yeah, so he's a passionate guy, which I am definitely a passionate guy too.
Mhm.
Interesting enough, Jack definitely has that nurturing teaching style. Like
Mhm.
I was just telling you, Eric, before we started, he just ran a summer camp for kids. And he wanted something to do. He wanted to make a little money, and he knew that these kids, all these parents are signing their kids up for 4 million camps. So he ran
Yeah.
2 different sessions. The kids had fun. I mean, they did an egg drop. We did stepping stones. They tie-dyed shirts. Um, they made fairy doors. They painted them and installed them on trees. I mean, the kids had
Wow.
a blast. Jack, I look at Jack and I think he would be a wonderful teacher. Ethan is all over the place.
Sounds like
Ethan
he has a
kind
little
of
bit of
goes,
entrepreneur in him too, though.
maybe.
I
There you
love it.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a pool and they're on swim team. And I've been in Jack's ear. I started working when I was 14, teaching kids to swim.
Mhm.
Whoops, sorry.
Go
Hang on.
ahead.
When I don't move around, oh God, it doesn't want to let me in. There we go. Sorry.
All good.
Uh, he's probably going to do private swim lessons next year. And that's,
Awesome.
I started doing that when I was 14, and here I am, being a teacher for 20 years. So
Mhm.
I definitely see that in Jack. Ethan, I don't know what he's going to do. He's a math whiz,
Mhm.
but he's all over the place. You know what I mean? I just don't know what suits him yet, but he's a
Oh,
crack up,
that's
he's
great. Well, this has
yeah.
been awesome learning a lot about your family. I'd love to dig into the boardroom, but before we do that, let's hear from our sponsor, Brainiac.
When the only fish your kids will eat are gold, give them a Brainiac. Choose from snack favorites like applesauce and peanut butter that have a boost of omega-3s, choline, and other brain-building nutrients. To learn more, visit brainiacfoods.com.
All right, thanks, Brainiac. We're jumping into the boardroom of the classroom with Scotty.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit earlier about your mom being a teacher. Was she a teacher? Well, she was a teacher. She went back full time when you said you were about in fifth grade.
Yeah.
Is that the reason you got into teaching, or was there kind of a different calling that you had that kind of led you down that road?
I've got to, I'm sure it is, you know what I mean? And I always tell the story of my brother and I, being kids, my mom teaching kindergarten, this is before computers. This is before Google Images. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember, sitting at home trying to draw a horse or trying to draw a pig for my mom, because if you need a picture of a pig, you better be a good artist because you couldn't find it online. You know what I mean? So I remember helping out. I remember going in and helping her out. I remember going on the field trips, and she'd give me all the crazy boys because she didn't want to deal with them. And I love those crazy boys. You know what I mean? So when I look at that, I mean, having my first job teaching kids to swim, did that come from my mom? I'm sure it did. You know what I mean? And then once I left Chico, I mean, my aspirations of Chico was I was highly involved in my fraternity, which in a sense was teaching. When you're involved and you're managing and you're marketing and you're organizing. I mean, I had that teaching thing, but I always wanted to, go out there and see if I could make it big in the corporate world. And I did that for a couple of years right out of Chico, and it wasn't very fulfilling. You know what I mean? And I just didn't. Maybe I didn't get my shot or whatever, but I just didn't feel like I could find my potential. And so, 2 years after being out of college, I just felt pretty lost. And I just thought, what am I going to do? And what's kind of ironic about it is, kind of seeing all these Chico buddies, the only two or maybe three that were still doing the same thing they did that they thought they were going to do right out of Chico were my three buddies that were teachers. And they said, I'm still teaching. I love teaching. It is great. And so that was really in the back of my mind, like, I've been doing that, in and out my whole life. Maybe I got to go back. So I decided, 2 years after college to go back to college, working full time, going to school at night. I was commuting. I mean, I was all over the place, but I was focused. And so maybe for the first time, I mean, Chico's a lot of fun and it's a little too much fun. So the focus
the first time you're
there,
focused.
right. And so I was ultra focused, and, I look at it now. I mean, I'm just ending my 20th year. And so did my mom have a part in that? I'd say 100% she did.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about how you manage your class during the pandemic. I mean, this is, I don't think, the non-educator can understand this, unless we've lived it like you have. Any insight on what you went through, whether it was when the whole thing happened and how that went down and the day-to-day challenges that you faced, or kind of the evolution, or just an overview of kind of what the whole process has been?
Yeah, I mean, it was so I will say this, that I work in my district. It's two cities coming together. When you're talking 2 marches ago, which is crazy to say that, when 2 marches ago, when all of a sudden it was like, go home, and I'm being kind of silly here, but it was like, we're all going to die. You know what I mean? Kind of like, we all went home and it was gone. And for March, April, May, those were my 3 months that I still had of that first pandemic's time. My family's just disappeared. My family's, being low socioeconomic, did not have technology, did not have a Chromebook, did not know what Zoom was. We didn't know what Zoom was. Just, did not have food. They're relying on free breakfast, free lunch. These kids stay after school, they get free dinner. They had no food. Mom and dad were unemployed, laid off. I mean, they were gone. I communicated with like 3 families. And so I was just like a deer in the headlights for those months. I just didn't know what to do every day. And I just would call, I'd text, I'd email, and I just didn't, I was in a panic. I just didn't know what to do because I didn't know how to help. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then when we came back in, I will say one good thing about my district is we were one of the first districts in the Sacramento area, one of the first, to bring these kids, if they wanted to come in person, to get them in person. So I was in front of kids this school year that we just ended in November. And I mean, that I was teaching first grade then. I'm going down to kinder now, but having someone that small being in a classroom was essential, right? We've heard
Yeah.
that word a million times, essential, but that was key for those kids. And it was wonderful. And my mantra, and I might get in trouble with this one, but my mantra was, I was like, I'm going to underwhelm this year because I certainly don't want to overwhelm, because I
Yeah.
saw it. I would get home from the day and my kid's trying to upload something on Google Docs, and I'm going, what is this? Well, what are you even learning? Where? And immediately I go from 0 to 100 because I'm just frustrated and I've got anxiety. I don't know what you've been doing. I don't know what's going on, And so I felt it as a parent, like it was so overwhelming to try and hop
Mm.
into something and because I don't know what's going on. And so I just
Yeah.
said, you know what? I'm going to build an environment that I just said to my families, I said, we did have one day when they would be on Zoom, but I just said, listen, get them on Zoom that morning, have their pile of stuff with them. I, like you said with your son, I made it a routine. I taught the parents a routine. I taught the kids a routine. And I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
keeping this super mellow. Like, I just want
Yeah.
you to be here, be present, and I'm going to take you through this, but we're going to get to the end. It might take us a little bit longer, but I'm not going to overwhelm you. So that was
Mhm.
kind of my mantra. And I think it worked. I mean, I was very proud of what my first graders were able to do
Mhm.
during COVID. And I'll tell you this, Eric, you know, kids are so resilient. They really are. We don't give kids enough credit. We had so many worries about the kids, throwing their masks around, sneezing on them, passing them to each other. These kids wore those things. It'd be raining outside. They're running in the rain. They're soaking wet, having the best time of their life. They kept those things on. I was a guy that struggled teaching every day with a mask on. I was like, I can't breathe. And, you know, those kids rocked it. They really
Yeah.
did. And I will say this, Eric, that I know a lot of people, I'm kind of jumping ahead. I know a lot of people have apprehension of like, should the kids all repeat? They've
Mhm.
lost all this education. I think we're not giving them enough credit of all the things that they learned
Yeah.
about. I mean, the tech savviness of these kids now
Mhm. Yeah.
is unbelievable. And we haven't measured that yet. And I mean,
Mhm.
these districts are going to come back in and say, you're here in the classroom, but I can guarantee you these districts are saying, we have these programs. So, hey, instead of us going through all this stuff in class, I'm going to ask you to do that at home. You're going to upload that Google Doc, and these kids are just going to be in class doing their thing, coming home,
Mhm.
uploading, boom, done. And I mean, these parents are going to be blown away that a 10-year-old is just rocking it. You know what I mean?
So with that, do you think that like the pandemic has like forced innovation faster on the school district and how it evolves and navigates moving forward?
100%. Like some people are like, oh my God, this was the worst thing ever. And I went through that too. But it's like at this point, we've got to talk about the positives. And
Yeah.
I will say this, Eric, that being a public school, you can't assume or ask or tell a parent to have anything at home. You know what I mean? And I mean, being an elementary teacher,
Mhm.
I wasn't even comfortable asking them to do a project at home because I don't even know if they have scissors or they have
Mhm.
glue or they have crayons. So I wouldn't ask them to do anything. And once again, I'm on the lower end. If you're in a affluent area, they have Chromebooks and they have MacBooks and all
They
that
have
stuff. You
the
know what I mean?
$1,000 a year or whatever per kid to
Right.
make sure they have all the stuff.
Parents are
Yeah.
just throwing money at you, and they're
Mhm.
coming in because they've got one parent making good money and the other parent can stay home. Like that is not in low socioeconomic areas. They
Mhm.
don't have that ability. So now we distributed these Chromebooks. We just and every single kid on my campus received one because they needed one. And now they have it. So it forced that issue, because if we didn't have something as severe as this, it would have never have happened. And we
Well,
still
you look at
that
the digital divide getting deeper, right? And
big time,
the
big
kids
time.
will fall further behind. And we know there's plenty of studies that are out there today on, access, I'll
100%.
say access generally speaking, and it goes across a variety of topics. Um, t-
100%.
yeah. Tell us a little bit more about like, how did you, cope as you're managing this crazy day-to-day
Yeah.
teacher educator reality. You're going home, you've got two kids right at the
Yeah.
time, that were going through middle school or whatever it may be. How did you, what kind of outlets, how did you balance that? How did you, come to your reasoning place where you were somewhat okay with things, or how do you manage through it?
And it's funny you say that. I mean, when I think about those days, especially in the beginning, it was because all of a sudden our household, you've got 2 teachers and 2 students. One of the first things we had to do is we had to come up with 4 offices in our house because we need 2 kids that needed dedicated space and technology. And then you needed 2 teachers to set up virtual classrooms. And so that was a challenge that we all had to be in our corners and find our space. But I would say then we were all just like locked in a cage, you know what I mean? And I mean, you know, my dog got the most exercise it's ever gotten because of dog walking. I mean, we walked that dog because my dog's in great shape, you know. The bike rides were unbelievable. We bought ladder ball, we bought badminton, we bought so many games to be outside, and we would just be playing tunes, and then a couple kids from the neighborhood would come over and we'd be playing badminton. It was just whatever we could do to get ourselves outside, we did. You know what I mean? Because you just saw that you just needed that outlet. Lot of music, you know. One thing that I think a lot of parents struggled with was their kid was on a device all day. Their kid really can't go out and play. They can't go see their friend. So then you'd be like, well, do you want to watch a movie? And it's like, you know, and you're just trying to think of something, but it's like that kid has been staring at a screen all day, and now we're just giving them another screen. You know what I mean? And then after the movie, they watch a show, and then they, you know, and it was like, oh my God, how do I get? And what are we doing as parents? We're staring at our phone, lifting our head up, going, go do something else, go do something else, and we're all just glued to some sort of screen, and
mimicking the behavior that we wanted them not to do.
Exactly.
Huge struggle. This has been really interesting. I have one last question before we get into rapid fire 5. Do you think being a dad has made you a better teacher, or being a teacher made you a better dad?
That's interesting. You know, when I find, and I don't want to prejudge, but I, you know, when I was younger, you know, it was like, well, here, I'm giving you your homework. Why can't you get that homework done? And then all of a sudden you become a parent and you realize how difficult, you know, sitting your kid down and reading for 15 minutes can be World War III at home. You know what I mean? And so once you have children, I think you get such a different perspective on how challenging something that when you just have your educator lens on, you think, well, that should take you 15 minutes. Sure. But, you know, but the kid comes home and he had soccer practice and you're trying to get food on the table and you're exhausted and they're exhausted. And it's like, you know, having a kid being like, we didn't get that done. You're like, oh, that's cool. But because so you learn a lot. You learn a lot.
More like I said, about their situation and what they potentially are going through. It sounds like
big time. And like I said, being, you know, teaching and then going home and helping them out, I saw that. And like I said, that's where kind of my underwhelming thing came. And it was like, whoa, we stress out a kid, then we've stressed out the parents. Now we've stressed out a family, and we're not getting anything done. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want these kids to smile. And I was teaching little guys, if they want to talk about losing a tooth, and that's really all we talked about today, we're going to talk about losing a tooth. You know what I mean? Because that's what they want to talk about. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. Well, this has been great. It's time to get into our rapid fire 5. All
right.
So this is going to be 5 to 7, 8 questions, whatever I decide to cut it off at. Rapid succession, 2 available answers. Only one can be selected. You, of course, do not know what we're going to ask you. So let me know when you're ready and we'll get going.
I'm ready.
All right. First question, beach or mountains for your next vacation?
Beach.
All right. Better perk of being a teacher, shaping kids' lives or summer vacations?
Shaping kids' lives.
Okay. Are you an IPA or a Pilsner kind of guy?
You know, Chico knocked me out, man, with all that IPA. So I am now, because I'm old, I'm a Pilsner guy.
The Pilsner. I also go a little lighter these days after all the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
I can't do it anymore.
All right. Dates with your wife. Are you pouring red or white wine?
Definitely red.
Okay. And which kid's going to go skydiving with you? Madison, Jake, or Ethan?
Ethan is definitely going to jump out of that. Jack might, but Ethan's going to go first. Definitely.
All right. And last question, when you're teaching, are you wearing flip-flops or closed-toed shoes?
So, okay. So, well, it's funny you say that. So let's see. So I think kids aren't here. Yes. Kids aren't here yet. So this is my, you know, thing, but they are closed-toed. But I will say that, you know, I usually have, I Kids don't see me in pants too often. I've got nice shorts on. I've got my slip-on Vans. I've got, a V-neck, shirt on. I definitely get some comments from some of the teachers that they say I look like I'm going to the beach, and I take that as a compliment. I'm crawling around with these kids on the floor. I want to be comfortable. I want them to be comfortable. So I definitely take that approach.
So flip-flops.
Right. A nice flip-flops.
Yes.
Right,
and what kind of flip-flops are those? I think I may have a pair of those.
Yeah, those are the good ones. What are they called? The Hawaiian ones, right?
Yeah, the Hawaiian ones. Yes.
The Moana ones, right?
Yeah,
right?
And they are not a sponsor, but I can tell you with size 15 feet, they're one of the only sandal companies that are out there that fit my feet, are comfortable as hell, and last. So they're great. All right. Thanks for playing Rapid Fire 5 with us. It's time to jump into pocket perspectives and quotable one-liner mantra or tweet that resonates with you or you live by. You want to share with our listeners today?
Boy, I don't know. I would say, what am I going to say? I don't even know what I'm going to say. How about you go first, Eric? You give me some inspiration. You got one for me?
Well, one of the things that came up today that I thought was really on point, if you will, to use a recent term, is really around underwhelming, not overwhelming, right? And not having to push all the same volume of stuff, education, content, whatever it may be, as we used to prior to COVID, right? We had, especially going back into school. And so for parents out there, be kind to your kids. Don't overload them just because that's the way you're wired or all the things you want them to do. Underwhelm them, not overwhelm them.
Yeah.
That's my pocket perspective.
Good. And so you inspired me. So now I've got two, because I got to hear from you. I had to soak it in a little bit.
Of course you
did. I do have two. So one kindergarten teacher that I got the opportunity to work with for a couple of years, she had been teaching forever. She retired. She would say to me sometimes in passing, she would say, "Remember, Scott, go slow so that you can go fast." And I would hang on to that so often, because we sometimes get in this zone. We get these spreadsheets, we get these pacing guides, and we worry the pandemic, and they're not worried, and they didn't go to preschool, and we just start running with these kids, and we ask these kids that have never run a mile, in a sense, to run 5 miles. You know what I mean? And it's like, what are we doing here? We're doing them a disservice. So that is a mantra that I like to hang on to, is go slow so that you can go fast. And I awesome. Learned that when I was in elementary and when I taught middle school too. Another one that I think about too is just being in the moment. And I think we've so lost that. You know what I mean? We're so close to make a great little thing on Facebook and all that, but be in the moment, man, and just soak it in right now. And just, some of the silliest things that are going on that don't seem significant now, those will be your memories that you remember. And I mean, Eric, you and I mean, we've just reconnected after 25 years or so. And when you and I start talking, it's not these huge things that you and I did. You and I did not hang out in Chico a lot, but so you and I had these small little things, but that's what we both can resonate about. And those sometimes are the coolest, funniest things ever, these goofy little things that happen. And so I just feel like more so now, we've really got to just be in that moment and just take it all in, and just, and just remember that this, you don't know what you're going to remember. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Just try and take it all in. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, with that's a wrap. Special thanks to Scott for being our guest today. It was great having you on the program. Big shout out to Scotty's co-teachers over at Folsom Cordova Unified School District for all the hard work.
The Mother Hips. Wait, here we go. The Mother Hips. There you go.
The Mother Hips. Yeah.
Another Chico hit, right?
Little Chico shout out. About time to boardroom. He's got them all today.
That's right. Great. I mean, I'm telling you, right? I'm just plugging them like crazy, right? I need my summer income. You know what I mean? My sponsor.
There you go. Right? Be sure to follow Bath Time to Boardroom on Instagram, like us on Facebook, or subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find us wherever you find your podcasts. With that, it's a wrap. Until next time, whether it's at bath time or in the boardroom, remember to cherish these moments and make a splash.